Hey, yo.
Damn right. Tonight's episode of Wrestling with Egos is going to be dedicated to the everlasting, undeniably amazing legacy of Scott Hall, who, as we all know, unless you've been hiding under a rock, passed away on Monday night. And we could go into detail about all of that, but the three of us would rather go into detail about just what he meant to wrestling as a whole. And we've got other stuff to talk about as well, including a tragic injury that really sucked, and then a prophecy fulfilled. By the way, that's going to be the last thing we'll talk about. Well, welcome to Wrestling with Egos. However you may be listening to us, whether it's on Anchor Podcasts, Google, Apple, Spotify, Intergalactic Radio, or watching us here on the YouTubes, thank you so much for making this episode of Wrestling with Egos part of your entertainment for the week. My name's Patrick. I'm joined each and every week, or at least the weeks that I'm on the show. I'm joined by Brian and Isaac. I've been a part-timer lately. I've got crap to do. I start a new job in 2 weeks. Come on, give me a break. I got to get ready for it. But as always, I've got Brian and Isaac in tow. The Dean Ambrose and the Roman Reigns to my Seth Rollins. We being the Shield. I wish third guy in the primetime players, because then we would have Titus, Darren Young, and then somebody else, and then millions of dollars. But Vince screwed us on that one. Thanks a lot, Vince. Seriously, gentlemen. Isaac, you first. How we doing, bro?
I'm here, ready to go. Been an interesting week. So let's do this.
Brian, it's been an interesting week.
It's been an interesting week. Life is good. Plenty of blessings to go around for everyone. And
yes,
we're happy that you've chosen to join us for your weekly dose of wrestling news and opinions, and we're going to dive right in. So thank you very much. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, like and share, leave that 5-star review, spread the word, because the drive for 500 subscribers continues. I would love nothing more than the Woo Chop the Dude in the orange t-shirt. We need your help to make that happen.
By the way, just like we do around this time every year, not only do we get hyped for WrestleMania, but there's also a basketball tournament going on. Brian, I'm digging the blue shirt today. Your Dukies did well.
They did for one night anyway. I mean, they've been struggling the last couple of weeks, but we're in the dance, and we're trying to send Coach K out a winner. Not that he already isn't a winner.
Right. And I gotta be honest, it is bittersweet. Myself wearing the orange and blue War Eagle shirt. For those of you that don't know, I have been an Auburn fan ever since I was a little kid, but I graduated from Jacksonville State University, who Auburn played today. The basketball guys hate me. However, after the game was over, I was given blessings by the basketball gods, because not only last night did Kentucky lose to a 15 seed, but Alabama lost as well. Thank you. Moving right along.
Winning.
What?
Winning.
Speaking of winning, talk about going out a winner. The legacy of Scott Hall. I'm just going to start it off by saying this. One of the most influential wrestlers of all time. You can argue his in-ring, you can argue whatever else, but behind the scenes, creatively, contractually, if it were not for him and Kevin Nash, wrestling would not be what it is. We always talk about the grand timeline of wrestling, and without this bullet, without this pinpoint, and without this pinpoint, blah 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 blah. I'm gonna go ahead and say it right now, because he is a part of one of the biggest pinpoints in the timeline. Without Scott Hall, this show is not happening. Because without Scott Hall, Kevin Nash isn't in WCW. Hulk Hogan doesn't turn heel. and we don't get the NWO. And without the NWO, we don't get the Attitude Era. And without both of those and the Monday Night Wars, we ain't doing this show right now.
Survey says
One
more for the good guys.
Exactly. And there's so much to talk about Scott Hall in terms of his, I can't remember how many times he won the WWF Intercontinental title. I want to say it was 6.
Sounds about right.
And I might be wrong, and if I am, okay, cool. Wouldn't be the first time. Won't be the last time either.
If we're wrong, hey, leave us a comment. You know, we love your comments.
Right down there.
Salmon time. Okay, fine. Tell us.
Cool. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks. We appreciate it. You know, we're all old guys. Sometimes we forget stuff. You know, you young whippersnappers have to help us out. But despite the, you know, in light of his championship victories, you know, the however many time Intercontinental Championships, the AWA Tag Team Championship with Kurt Hennig, the WCW Tag Team Championships with Kevin Nash, and I think he was U.S. champ as well.
Sounds about right.
I think he was U.S. champ as well. Scott Hall is one of those guys that didn't need a single one of those championships, because Scott Hall was able to get over and help build story, build careers, build feuds, etc., and not need a title. There's only one rivalry he ever had that you needed a championship for, and it was him and Shawn going into WrestleMania 10 in the iconic ladder match that started it all. Even though it may not have been the first ladder match, it was the most important at that time, because, wow, I'm doing it again. Without that match, we don't get the Hardys and Edge and Christian. We don't get TLC. We don't get Money in the Bank.
Yep.
So I mean, and for you AEW only people, we don't get the Face of the Revolution ladder match either. So there you go. We're including everybody here. So let's go ahead and get it started this way. 7 words or less, gentlemen. Scott Hall's career.
Seven words or less. All right. Worth much more than championships.
Isaac, you got one, or or should I go ahead and go and buy you some time?
No, because I'm trying to think of 7. Only 7. But go
Without
ahead.
all is lost.
Without this, none of this ever happens. Ever.
Yeah.
I mean, really, how you sum it up is you look at the reactions of your colleagues when something happens, you know.
Yes.
And say what you will about, you know, the way the stories were reported and whatnot. We won't get into that. You know, people speculating before, but you know, guys like Kevin Nash, guys like Sean Waltman, guys like Triple H, and even younger talent that clearly, you know, Kevin Owens coming out on Monday night started by saying, "Hey, yo," you know, Finn Balor was on Twitter, you know, throwing up the too sweet.
Britt Baker on Wednesday night going into the cage, rocking that Scott Hall inspired gear.
Yes. So and I've seen footage of him interacting with people at Comic-Cons and you know, meet and greets and things like that. It's clear that he made the time to talk to people, and he made the time to mentor young wrestlers, and he made the time to be there for his friends, and that's really all you can ask of anybody professionally and personally.
I was listening to the WWE podcast After the Bell. I want to say it was earlier today, or it might have been yesterday at some point. Corey Graves and Vic Joseph, along with two of the podcast producers. Those guys also handle like the New Day podcast and things like that. They were all talking about it, and Corey Graves made this great statement. Anytime Scott Hall was around backstage, you could pick his brain, and it was like turning on a faucet, and you had to be the one to turn the faucet off, because he would just keep imparting knowledge onto you, what to do, what not to do. He did everything but say he's the greatest learning tree not named Dusty Rhodes. I will put it to you this way in terms of how I feel about Scott Hall. The coolest bad guy ever. And that's saying a lot for me growing up the way I did, growing up in the height of the Four Horsemen and loving Tully Blanchard. Scott Hall, when you looked at him, the way he kind of did the sidewalk, the sideways walk to the ring, and the slicked hair, and the toothpick. Throwing the toothpick was like Kurt Hennig batting the gum away, and I always thought, man, that was just freaking cool.
He made it all seem effortless, like it wasn't work for him. Some people, they turn heel, or they are a heel, and man, they're working awfully hard to do, get this over. Scott Hall never had that problem.
I'll give you one. I'll give you one example of that. The 1-2-3 kid.
Yeah.
The kid, the cannonball kid, the lightning kid, the kid, whatever he was at that point on that particular episode of Monday Night Raw, was a jobber and should have gotten his ass kicked, and all of a sudden they pulled that one out of thin air, and it's on from there. Scott Hall's still a heel at that point. So, and he made it all look smooth and believable. And when he turned face, he never changed. He was that, he's, when I was booing him, he was a jerk. Well, he's still a jerk, but now he's just being a jerk to all the people that I want to boo. So, hey, we're winning here. Isaac, we've been kind of talking ad nauseum for a few minutes. Sorry.
I want to sit here and say, that he was one of the most influential, bad guys, if not the top. Other than the only other person that would rival him as a heel, in my opinion, was Rodney Piper. In my opinion, and we sit here and we talk about how cool he was, the things that he did, just his aura, the way he walked out, just the way he handled himself, the coolness factor. Go back and look at his matches, and you're like, this is the blueprint, this is the standard, this is the bar, and everyone else has to try and either get higher than that. And it was a pretty high bar that they set. And without him leading the charge of the NWO, we wouldn't be where we're at.
No.
And it wouldn't be as fun as it was, hey, I want to do a little survey, and how cool that was. Just everything about him,
Before we get into the talk of the contracts and the demons, because I honestly think the demons need to be discussed for a very particular reason, and we'll get there. I have a personal Scott Hall story. Never got to meet the man, but I did interact with him. It was at a WCW house show when they started running house shows again in Birmingham, Alabama. And no, it was a Nitro. It was a Nitro. My friends and I are sitting pretty close to the front row, on the side of the hard cam, so you can't see us. And I cannot remember what I had in my hand. It wasn't like a full cup of drink or anything, but I threw it at Scott Hall, and he just swats it, and he's looking me dead in the eyes, and just as cool as shit goes, "You got to do a hell of a lot better than that, kid."
Oh, man.
Wow. Okay.
I was like, "Yes, sir."
Wow. Okay.
Ah.
I was
That
like,
is memory though.
I mean, and the SWAT was like, it wasn't even a SWAT down. It was just,
He's more like, really?
yeah.
That's the way he
Right.
did.
And that's why he said, "You got to do a hell of a lot better than that, kid." Like,
That's hilarious.
That's funny.
Honestly and truly, we could discuss the business side of things, but everybody knows what got accomplished because of Hall and Nash in WWE. That was a perfect storm that allowed the business side of wrestling to become what it is, with it actually being financially viable to be a professional wrestler. But the one thing I really want to touch on before we get into another part of the Scott Hall conversation are his demons. We all know that he had serious substance abuse issues, especially toward the end of his WCW run. It cost him a lot. Cost him a lot of money, cost him friends and family, and everything else. I would like to point out that in 2015, Scott Hall got dragged, kicking and screaming, to the home of one Diamond Dallas Page, right after Page had helped Jake.
Yes.
Yep.
I think it's very safe to say that Diamond Dallas Page is solely responsible for us having 7 more years of Scott Hall.
Accurate statement.
Completely true.
That all being said, even though he is already a Hall of Famer, Diamond Dallas Page, who I found out today in 2015 legally changed his name to Dallas Page. Dallas Page should be the first ever wrestling saint.
Yeah.
Because of what he has done, not only for wrestlers in terms of getting healthy. He helped Jericho with his yoga system, helped Jericho get his back in shape so he could make a return to WWE, whichever comeback it was. He helped Bray Wyatt lose a shit ton of weight before he became the Fiend. He's helped countless people with injury, help rehab injuries. And he helped completely get Jake and Scott Hall clean. Jake is still alive.
Because DDP.
Right. Scott Hall, we got 7 or 8 more years out of him because of what Dallas Page did. Dallas Page should be a freaking saint as far as I'm concerned. There is something special about a human being that will do all of that.
Yeah, and it brings up something else that I think, another word to talk about Scott Hall. He had intangibles for days.
Oh my God.
I mean, Scott Hall might come up short in some other areas of our GOAT discussion if he were to ever, be considered for that. And that might make a heck of an episode, after WrestleMania season's over with. But the intangibles, Scott Hall, and you can tell that by the number of ideas that he's come up with and the number of people he's helped and the number of, I remember, I think Sting came out with a tweet earlier this week saying it was his idea for him to do the Crow aspect of it.
It was Scott Hall's idea that revitalized the career of Steve Borden.
Yes.
It's Scott Hall's idea that became the seed that became the best feud of 1997 or 98, whatever damn year it was.
98. Go ahead.
Sting was pretty awesome before that, but that clinched it.
Dude, I've always been a Sting fan. We know we've had this discussion on this show, but when he goes from Surfer Sting to Crow Sting, he goes from here to here, just like that. Oh, and Steve Borden would not have had that idea. Scott Hall did. Just
hey, Chico, you should paint your face, man. Black, make it a little late, you get that long trench coat, man. I think that'll be.
Earlier in the week, I can't remember which one of us it was. It wasn't me, so it was either you guys or it was RJ that fired this one off. But a discussion about whether or not Scott Hall is the greatest wrestler to never win a world championship.
I believe that was RJ.
That was RJ.
Okay, well, credit to RJ because he's a freaking genius. And he did say tonight that he would join us, but he is fuming mad at the news that Cleveland Browns traded for Deshaun Watson.
Moving right along.
Right along.
I'm mad, but I'm gonna keep mine at a level tonight. I'm kind of
22 people can't be wrong.
I'm not going there tonight. I can't.
That's all I'm saying. 22. Anyway, moving right along. And back to Scott Hall and the greatest the greatest to never win the big one. We have this discussion in real sports all the time. Like the two greatest to never win the big one in the NBA clearly are Karl Malone and Charles Barkley. Baseball, there's plenty of them. In wrestling, there's a few that you can look at and go, okay, they never won the world title. But I think here's the difference in, let's say the NBA and Karl Malone, Charles Barkley, John Stockton, Reggie Miller, those guys. And
Patrick Ewing, we have to put him in there.
Anyway, but those guys versus wrestlers. I can think of 4 right off the top of my head that never won the world title and honestly and truly did not need it. And Scott Hall is one of them. Rodney Piper's another one. Arn Anderson's another one. Kurt Hennig is not on this list. Why? Kurt Hennig is a former AWA World Heavyweight Champion. For all the people on Twitter that kept saying, no, Kurt Hennig. No, Kurt Hennig won the big one. He not only won the big one, boys and girls, he beat Nick freaking Bockwinkel for it. Sit down, shut up. I would make the argument, to me, it's either him or it's Piper. But neither one of them needed it. And this is a point that I thought of, and I think I heard it on the podcast, but I'm going to take credit for it because it's me. Starrcade 1999. Goldberg and Kevin Nash. What's the one thing you remember from that match?
Scott Hall with a taser on Goldberg, and that ending the streak. And thinking, really, Kevin Nash is the booker, so he gets it.
That's beside the point. Nobody remembers the match. Everybody remembers Scott Hall. Scott Hall never needed the world title. Just like Roddy Piper never needed the world title. How many championships did Roddy Piper win in his WWE career?
Oh.
Tag titles with Flair.
Yes.
Intercontinental title.
Huh?
Intercontinental title.
But Brian brought up one because I guarantee you Brian thought of the Intercontinental title when he beat the Mountie and then dropped it to Brett at WrestleMania 8.
Yes.
Indianapolis. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when I want to say it was around WrestleMania 25, he had a tag title run with it was either Piper or Steamboat. I'm sorry, Flair or Steamboat or one of the old guys. But yeah, they were doing that.
I don't remember, but you're probably right.
Because they were doing an angle with Chris Jericho that was circling around the Mickey Rourke movie, The Wrestler.
Yes.
And it culminated with Jericho beating all of the old guys and then getting KTFO'd by Mickey Rourke in the middle of the ring.
Ricky the Dragon.
Only other name that comes to mind, and you can disagree with me if you want, is William Regal, to be honest with you. As another guy who's been, he's never won the big one, but his contributions and his impact and his shadow looms large. It does.
I would not put him on the level of Piper and Hall because Regal's contributions to wrestling, although infinite as they are, 90% of those are behind the scenes.
Fair.
Scott Hall and Roddy Piper's influence was in front of the camera, not behind it.
I can agree with you on that. I mean, I could see Brian's point of how influential he was to business, and we're not arguing that part. But yeah, the stuff that he did, we didn't see on camera, and I agree with that. But most of the stuff we did see, when it came to Piper, when it came to Hall, we saw in front of the camera. So I agree with you on your point, and point taken.
Right. I mean, now if you want to get with William Regal, if you want to get into the discussion of greatest of most influential wrestlers just based on their contributions outside of the ring, it's William Regal and then everybody else.
Right.
Because William Regal was responsible for training countless people, teaching countless people how to be better at their craft. I mean, hello, NXT, when it was actually awesome. And the fact that he was WWE's chief recruiter. He was the eye test. He was the guy that Paul Levesque sent out and went, go look at this guy. Tell me if he's got go look at this Adam Cole guy. Tell me if he's got the goods. Go look at Johnny Gargano, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, Tommaso Ciampa, Braun Breaker.
Shots.
Yeah, he shows up in Evolve to offer Shotzi your contract straight up. You're right about that. Good one, Isaac. But William Regal was the eyes. So that is a different conversation for a much different time, but he does deserve to be a part of this conversation. But I'm still going to say, just from a overall contribution aspect, I would have to make the argument that Scott Hall is the most influential wrestler to never win the title. I mean, there are wrestlers more influential than him, but they all have world championship status to their names. Guys,
I mean, if you want to drive up the viewership by just having about 10 minutes of dead air while I sit here and try to think of somebody, I just can't think of anybody without poring over roster lists and stuff like that. And at that point, it's like, what's the point? Because you're not going to think of anybody by now.
Now, if we're splitting hairs here, and you want to talk just in ring, then the answer is Owen Hart. The answer is Owen Hart, and I'll die on that hill with a smile on my face and the love of Jesus in my heart. I mean, in ring, nobody could touch Owen. I mean, we had the Montreal Screwjob show episode on here on Wrestling with Egos, and I asked the question to both Brian and RJ, What if Owen never died? And RJ straight up says, we're not talking about Brett.
Yeah.
And he did not hesitate in that. So in ring, most influential to never win the world title, that's Owen Hart. Overall body of work, influence backstage, creatively, in ring, it's Scott Hall, and the rest are just details. My thoughts. Or as Dennis Miller once said, of course, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
You made a lot of points, and I have to agree with you on a lot of them. You know, I can't disagree right now.
You can't?
I
Okay.
have to really think about it, but I can't really disagree. You hit the nail on the head, and I'll leave it at that.
B, is there anything you want to add? Because I'm honestly and truly, in terms of Scott Hall, I think we've kind of covered it.
We have, and we miss him terribly. It's when the news started breaking and it was trending in that direction, I was like, this isn't good.
No.
So it's a big loss, and he will be remembered fondly.
I want to point this thing out. We lost Scott Hall now. If we would have lost him in 2015, we'd be singing a completely different story, because Scott Hall's life would have been a tragedy. Scott Hall's life, as he died in March of 2022, is a story of redemption.
Agreed.
We look at Scott Hall completely differently because of the last 7 years. And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to vilify him for the mistakes that he made and the choices that he made. I mean, it happens. We get it. I mean, that was especially part of the deal was in wrestling in the 80s and 90s. Okay. But the fact that Scott turned the corner and got himself clean and became an influence to a younger generation, constantly showing up at the Performance Center, busting Baron Corbin's balls all the time. His story ends as a redemption, as a what should have been.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of what could have been. This is what we should have had this whole time. I'm glad we got it at the end, as opposed to what we had 7 years ago. It draws a lot of parallels to Eddie Guerrero.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your demons catch up with you, but it wasn't your demons straight up that took you away. I'll have one last thing to say about Scott Hall toward the end of the show, but I'll leave it at that. Let's go ahead and move on to some news that we're not going to talk a lot about, mainly because there's not really much to talk about except just drop the facts, and we have to acknowledge it. Last Friday night, while these guys were doing the show, Biggie broke his neck. Unless you've been hiding under a rock, you've seen the video. To quote Taz at WrestleMania 19 in reference to Brock Lesnar, but changing the name, how is Biggie not dead right now? Mainly because he has a neck that's about that. He's got the axle of an 18-wheeler for a neck. I hate it for multiple reasons. Number one, I love Big E. Number two, number two, 3 months ago, this man was WWE champion. 3 months ago! And
life comes at you fast.
Yeah, he loses the title, and which to me is just disheartening, because there was so much more they could have done with Big E. To me, that sucks. Next thing I want to say is we need to grab Kofi Kingston. We need to wrap him up in bubble wrap and spray like safety foam all the way around him, because I do not want to live in a world where all 3 members of the New Day are injured. I can't do it. Isaac, you got something?
I just want to put this out there. And I want to say something when it comes to this. We all sit here and we love going to Monday Night Raws and the SmackDowns and any TV taping, whether it be for Impact, TNA, whatever the case is, NXT. But also going to house shows is extremely, extremely important. And this is a week where it was very, very vitally important because your boy, the King, showed up. Xavier Woods showed up at a house show and was wrestling. And it wasn't announced originally. This is why you go to house shows, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very, very important. And
he's on his way. The King is on his way back.
He's on his way back, but you would have thought there's no way, and you see him come out and you're like, is that? Oh my God, you're going to lose your mind. And that's exactly what happens. Sometimes things happen at house shows that you're not going to know about. This is a big, huge example. And this is why we need to support them, not just on those regular TV tapings, but throughout the entire year. And I'll go into another reason that we need to go to house shows a little bit later on for a different time, different era. But I just want to put that out there. So it was very important that, I saw that. I was like, wow, he showed up.
Yeah.
So I caught it.
Brian, you touched on this earlier in our pre-show chat session. Big E's presence on social media after the injury.
He got out ahead of it, and he's humbled by the outpouring, and it's nice to know that I have such a following here, and I'm getting all these well wishes, and it makes the recovery process a little bit easier. We're just grateful that the news is better than originally we feared. That the recovery is going to be minimal is probably the wrong word. I don't know how long he's going to be out. Maybe SummerSlam, maybe before then. I don't know what the prognosis is for something like this. But I think that's what we're all sitting here right now and just counting our blessings, and Big E's counting his blessings that, yeah, it looked horrible. Execution was horrible and all that. And I'm sure Ridge Holland feels terrible about it, because, you're trying to work safely out there. And we're just thankful that it didn't go much worse.
You know what it was, right? And I'm sorry to kind of make light of this, but it's the only way to also acknowledge this. Ridge Holland was just as shook up as we were that they renamed Pete Dunne Butch.
That's what happens, people.
Like, he's got a hold of Big E going, I can't believe they named this muckerfuther Butch. Oh!
Really?
Butch.
I got nothing to say.
Butch. But I will say this, and I got to be my cornball idiot self at some point on this show because everything else has been somber and reflective. But it's all about the Butch.
Did he really go there?
I sure did.
And I think this is as good a time as any to segue into our next topic and much, much, much happier news.
May I?
Sure.
May I, those 2 words. You had 2 words to begin the show. May I drop the very important 2 words?
Do your thing.
And no! AEW Women's World Champion. Our freaking girl. # friend of show. Thunder Damn Rosa. I know you guys I think you guys talked about it last week, kind of leading up to this. This was a match. I got a lot of problems with the whole rivalry between Britt and Thunder Rosa because it went stale for 4 months. I hated that. This match had a lot to live up to. And AEW, Tony Khan set them up to fail. Hear me out before you say anything, guys. You have that match from last year, at St. Patrick's Day Bash, and you're going to put them in a cage at St. Patrick's Day Bash 2022. No, nobody's going to draw comparisons. You are forcing those two women to live up to that, and they did. I did not think it was possible. And I honestly thought that. I'm like, they have set them up to fail because we are going to have these lofty expectations because it's literally 1 year ago from that Lights Out match. There was a match of the year on pretty much everybody's account. And you got to do it. You got to run that back. I am shocked that it lived up to expectations. To me, this had as many overly heightened expectations as AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura at WrestleMania. It was that built, it was that hyped up, and not by the company, by us. By wrestling fans, because we had these lofty expectations because we saw what AJ and Nakamura did in New Japan at Wrestle Kingdom. We saw what Britt and Thunder did last St. Patrick's Day. It's a lot to live up to, boys. And they did. It was, I wouldn't say it was better than last year, but it's on the list for match of the year 2022.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, last year's match was such a revelation that for me, anything was going to suffer in comparison, unfortunately.
Agreed.
Some of the spots in this match seemed a little bit forced or clunky, and maybe that's the wrong word. I'm not trying to take away from what they both did, but it was clear that Britt and Thunder Rosa were leaving nothing to the imagination, and everybody played their part to perfection. You know, the memory came up on my Facebook today of me giving props to them for their match last year, and I wound up not doing it because of whatever reason, but I was going to share it again and say, well, you did it again. I just didn't think to do it.
It happens. But there were so many spots in this match that, to me, this match seemed part War Games, part Hell in a Cell, with that level of brutality. This was a brutal freaking match, and this wasn't Lights Out. I thought the brutality in the cage match was more than what we had last year.
Yeah, it was.
Say what?
It was totally, but at the same time, you think to yourself last year, how are they going to top it?
Well,
How
there you go.
are they going to top? How are they going to take it to that next level? And that next level is really tough to beat.
I mean, you had an air raid crash off the second rope into a stack of tables. I find it very ironic that it was Britt Baker dropping that move, because the last time we saw somebody get air raid crash in a cage match, we saw Britt Baker outside the ring doing this. Because it was Cole getting dropped by Ciampa in a War Games. Oh, God, that was a spot. We saw that. We saw the counter of all counters to the lockjaw, and the fact that Rosa tried to bite her hand off. And then we saw the Fire Thunder driver into thumbtacks. I want to point out one thing. I find Britt Baker's heel work, it's good, but it's repetitive. That is one bad chick. And here's why. The very next morning, she tweeted out, got on a flight, back at my practice, just found a thumbtack.
Okay.
Stitched up, going back to work, being a dentist. Oh, there was a thumbtack. She did not say where, but she found a thumbtack.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, that's what a heel is supposed to do, right? You know, you're supposed to want to pay money to see them get their butt kicked, and it finally happened.
Dude, in that match, we were paying money to see them both kick the crap out of each other because you knew that was what was going to happen. We were going to have a very emotional match. We were going to have the hometown pop with Thunder Rosa being in San Antonio, even to the point where Justin Roberts, you know, from the graveyards of Tijuana by way of San Antonio, Texas, but boom pop. You had the emotion and everything. Again, it lived up to expectations. I don't know how it lived up to expectations, but damn it, it did. One cool thing that I noticed that my wife pointed out, that's the first time I think I have ever seen an all-female mariachi band.
I know I've never seen one.
And don't get me wrong, I like mariachi bands. They're really, really cool. I mean, I saw a video on YouTube once of a mariachi band playing The Devil Went Down to Georgia, and it's just sick. Yeah, it's sick. But and being a music nerd and a band nerd, just the precision in the way they play their notes, I'm just like, yeah, that's good stuff right there. But I've never seen an all-female mariachi band. I thought that was just great. And just the raw emotion on our girl, because we've talked a lot about Britt Baker. We have not talked about the champ. You know, we've given a lot of flowers to Britt in this, but the raw emotion from Thunder Rosa, 1, 2, 3, and just blood.
Waterworks, yeah.
I watched the match already knowing what happened and still got a little choked up. Mainly and not just because we on Wrestling with Egos feel a little bit of a connection to Rosa because of her interactions with RJ's kids. So by proxy, you know, we're all a family, even though RJ comes and goes on the show and we haven't seen him in a while, but RJ's still part of this deal. So therefore, his girls are part of this deal. And to see that was just awesome, because you have to think this is the first person in AEW that wasn't a part of the initial launch, and 2, isn't ex-WWE talent to elicit that kind of feeling.
Yes.
Everybody else that gets that kind of reaction is either a Jericho, a Moxley, somebody else that's come over from WWE, or one of the originals. Britt, MJF, Darby, Jungle Boy, you know, those pillars, as
Kenny
they
Omega.
call it. Thunder Rosa's the outsider. Thunder Rosa.
We're one more for the good guys.
One more for the good guys. She's the outsider, Chica. And I mean, to the point where they call it the Thunder Rosa pop now. I mean, she gets in there, she works her ass off, she gives everything she has every night, And if there was ever a damn moment to chant, you deserve it, it was, no. She doesn't deserve it. She freaking earned it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate the whole you deserve it thing. I'd prefer you earned it. Sometimes they deserve it and don't earn it. Other times they just straight up earn it. And that was our girl on Wednesday night. I'm curious to see what they do with Britt after this. Are we gonna get a rematch, or is Rosa gonna feud with somebody else now?
I think running it back again would be a mistake. And the reason I say that is because you can use both women to build up others. Because Britt has probably proven that she doesn't need the title right now. I mean, she had a long reign. You know, she feuded with a lot of the girls on the roster. You know, made some of them look good. You know, some of them, you know, suffered in comparison. I wonder if they don't take somebody like, I wonder if, now I know Serena Deeb's got the deal with Hikaru Shida coming back apparently. That might be where they're going with that next. And if that's the case, bellissima. But like, I'm trying to think if it's worth, like, you know, maybe Britt, like, her little gaggle of people break up somehow and they turn Jamie Hayter face or something like that. Or that there's not a lot of legs to that story. But I'm trying to think of another heel that Rosa could spar with. And the only one that, honestly, the only one that comes to mind is Jade Cargill. But could you say, do you think she's ready for that spot? I don't know if she is or not.
No, she's not. She's still way too green. She's only had one really, really good match, and that was the match with Tay Conti.
Yeah.
Honestly and truly, what I would like to see, screw Shida. Give me Thunder Rosa and Serena Deeb for one reason and one reason only. Who took the NWA Women's World Championship off of Thunder Rosa?
Serena.
Writes itself right there, boys and girls. I took that title off you. I can take this title off you. And this Serena Deeb is a shitload better than the one we had when she beat her for the NWA title. I love what they're doing with Serena Deeb right now. She is amazing. And honestly, truly, you know what I would do with Britt?
I just thought of something.
What?
Purely selfish on my part. It's time. It's high time.
Title on Bailey. She's still under contract.
No. It's high time that Anna Jay had something more to do than wince every time Johnny Hungy tells a joke on being the elite. I think it's time for Anna Jay to take the next step in the ring, and I think Britt could draw that out of her. You know, where Britt just starts showing up and randomly, you know, picking on her and goading her into matches and stuff like that. And then we discover, wow, Anna's got chops, you know, that kind of thing. I just want I want her to get more TV time, and that's the way to do it.
I do too. Unfortunately, though, I think Anna Jay has this massive albatross around her neck right now. And honestly, it's called the Dark Order. Yeah. I would love to do, and maybe, I know we've been kind of talking about something else in the chat while the show's going on. Maybe throw this one out there for you. Remember how several weeks ago you guys did a show saying nice things about WWE. I offer you this, gentlemen. How about next week? We sit and do a show, and we take what we like from every promotion, and we make our promotion. And we also talk about the things that we don't like. What's WWE doing that we like, that we would use in our promotion? What's AEW doing? What's AEW doing that we freaking can't stand and would never do it? Same with WWE. The good and the bad. You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both. There you have the facts of life. Hey, there's a title of the show next week, The Facts of Life.
Okay.
All we need now is Mrs. Garrett and Tootie. That was her name, right?
Yes.
That was Tootie, yes. Kim Fields, and she was fine as hell. Yes. Love Tootie.
Yeah. But
who's gonna be Blair is my question.
RJ.
Oh,
He's
man.
not here, so he gets saddled with that one. But seriously, Anna Jay has that hanging around her neck. And honestly and truly, I don't think she's going to get taken seriously because she's Dark Order. Dark Order isn't serious at this point. They're not even really a factor in the Hangman story anymore.
Alex Reynolds is trying to be, but he's only one guy.
Right. And honestly and truly, I think with Hangman, I think we're slowly headed toward Hangman and the Bucks versus the Undisputed Originals. I mean, it makes perfect sense. Because newsflash, boys and girls, despite the fact that Don Callis came out during the damn pre-show for Revolution, Kenny Omega will not be in the ring in 2022. He just had knee surgery. After his knee surgery, he has to have a hernia repaired. There's his year, boys. I mean, he ain't. Will's, you know what? Prediction. You know what? I'm going to offer, and this is not even part of the show, but I'm going to offer you 2 predictions for 2023. AEW Revolution, the return of Kenny Omega. WrestleMania LA, one of your main events for a world championship. Because even though Roman and Brock is winner take all, they're gonna split the titles again like they always do because they're freaking idiots. One of the 2 world titles next year will be Matt Riddle and Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker's been in WWE how long? And he's already on Raw. And don't get me wrong, there's a damn good reason he's already on Raw. The kid has the goods. Even Jenny thinks so. I don't know if you guys heard that one or not.
We heard it.
God, you're a loud cat. So, anyway, I think that's going to kind of do it for the show because, I mean, we've had all the greatness that there is about. My God, what is wrong with you? This cat is flying all over the house. You know what? I know we have the house to ourselves tonight because, you know, Nurse Rant Mode On is visiting family in Texas and the girls aren't here because they're with their other parents. But you got to chill.
Yeah.
You got to chill. And I promise there's no catnip in the house. I don't know what the crap her problem is. Kids, what you going to do? 2-legged, 4-legged, I don't know. They're all insane. Before we get out of here, boys, any final thoughts? Any final thoughts on Scott? Any final thoughts on Big E? Any final thoughts on the champ?
Heartfelt congratulations to friend of the show, Thunder Rosa. You know, you worked your tail off to get to this point, and we appreciate that.
Damn proud of you.
I want to piggyback on what Brian just said. I feel, you know, that she earned it. When it comes to Big E, speedy recovery, my friend. When it comes to Scott Hall, Rest in peace, my brother. You were just a little too sweet. You know what it is.
That's gonna do it for this episode of Wrestling with Egos. From that point, I just gotta end it, man, because you know the only way to end it is with the line that I had planned at the very end, and I will. It's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us during this hour. Hope we get to reconvene next week and talk about other fun stuff and other reasons why we love this crazy world of professional wrestling. For Brian, for Isaac, for everybody else involved with the show, my name's Patrick. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. Brian's at Rant. No, Brian's not at Rant Mode On. Brian's at BCrigo15. Isaac's at I the Fourth. I'm at Rant Mode On. You can tweet the show at Wrestling X Egos. Again, don't forget to like, subscribe, share. 5-star ratings on all the podcasts. Click the bell for the notifications. All that good stuff. If you subscribe within the next 10 minutes, we will send you a t-shirt. It may not have anything on it, but we'll send you a t-shirt. Then we're going to get out of here. And instead of using the catchphrase tonight, I'll leave you with this, and I'll try to get through it without getting too emotional. Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Hard times don't last, but bad guys do. We'll see you next week, Chico.